Today, we're going to break down 15 young Dynasty players whose values could either soar or sink depending on what happens in the next calendar year or so. I think today's discussion is really, really important because everybody that I'm going to talk about today is under the age of 25, ranked outside the top 100 Dynasty assets, and can be had if you wanted to trade for them for less than a rookie first-round pick. So we're not talking about guys that are highly valued. We're talking about guys who are kind of on the brink of being fantasy relevant or not fantasy relevant. But I think it is worth noting that every single year we see guys come out of this area that become fixtures to your fantasy roster. And also we see every single year guys like Treylon Burks, Jahan Dotson, Sky Moore, who were previously valued in this range, kind of fall out. Dynasty managers lose patience with them. So all of these players is going to be based on a couple of things that we know about the Dynasty market. For starters, we know that young talent is king, which is why if you're 24, 23 years old and you have a breakout season, players can skyrocket at their positions, skyrocket up Dynasty boards. Dynasty players are also very impatient, and we want to see that young talent at the first opportunity, whether it's in year one because they have an open wide receiver core, in year two because their backfield cleared up or something. We know that generally the prime years of running backs are like 22 to 26, wide receivers like 24 to 28, and then tight ends, quarterbacks 25 and up probably to about 29. Basically what we're doing is determining, is this asset likely to go up, stay the same, or go down? Because in a calendar year, their value could either be worth nothing, worth a lot, or worth about the same. And it's usually, I would say for all of these guys, kind of shit or get off the pot for them because Dynasty managers are going to lose patience if they don't take the necessary steps that all of us think they can. So I'm going to go through some wide receivers first, then some running backs, and then a quarterback and a tight end at the end of this video. First one is the most expensive of anybody on this list, and that's Ricky Pearsall of the 49ers. Peaking right now is about a top 36 wide receiver on the market. Pearsall to me is such an interesting case because there's a couple of things that get you excited. Number one, his reception perception profile looks pretty solid from his rookie year. 58th percentile versus man, 83rd percentile versus zone, which is the primary coverage he's going to see, and 76th percentile versus press. Those are big boy numbers as a route runner. Those are actually, the zone coverage mark is actually much better than a lot of the good route runners from this past year's class. I believe only Ladd McConkey and Brian Thomas and Malik Neighbors were relatively in that range, but we kind of knew that about Pearsall. We knew he was a good route runner. The issues that I had with Pearsall were, number one, him along with Xavier Legette, who I'll also talk about in this video, are the worst first-round wide receivers to ever be drafted that high in the prospect model since 2016, aka they probably should have gone in the second or the third round, but the NFL reached on them. Pearsall was not a good prospect. He was an older prospect, didn't have great production. Pearsall has competition even in the 49ers receiver core in the short term. He has George Kittle there. He has Juwan Jennings there, Christian McCaffrey there, and of course, Brandon Ayuk, once he's back from his injury and back to 100%, should be the alpha of this wide receiver core. The only thing he really does have going for him is that it's a good offense or a good projected offense. He has a good quarterback who's tethered to the team long term, and Deebo Samuel is gone, which will free up some routes, free up some targets. I want to buy into Ricky Pearsall really badly, but the market's making it hard because if Ricky Pearsall was wide receiver 46 in Dynasty right now, I would probably be sitting here telling you guys to buy him. And with all of these players, we're going to kind of give a firm verdict. Am I buying? Am I holding? Am I selling? I get that Ricky Pearsall was like shot his rookie season, and that's a tumultuous time to go through as a rookie player, but he's also almost 25 years old and he's entering his second season. Think of the Dynasty market implications if he doesn't hit, if he doesn't have a great season this year, because everybody's kind of already projecting that he will. He's going high on underdog. He's already being projected into kind of like the Deebo Samuel role. Love the spike weeks that he had last year. Week 10 against Tampa Bay, week 17, of course, in the Best Ball Mania finals, had a great week against Detroit, and week 18 versus Arizona. But if you ask me right now, given his price, to buy, sell, or hold on wide receiver 36, early second round rookie pick value right now, the 202 in 2025, or an early projected second in 26, probably a little bit plus, there's not a chance in hell I wouldn't re-roll him into Luther Burden, who's going at the 202 right now, or re-roll him into RJ Harvey, Caleb Johnson, maybe Jackson Dart. I just don't think that he's worth this price tag. I think he's worth about a mid-second round pick, so I'm a little bit lower on him relative to the market. I could re-roll him into Luther Burden given this price tag, who's nearly 3.5 years younger than Ricky Pearsall, and I thought was a better prospect, tethered to a very similar situation, lots of target competition. got to carve out a role, that kind of thing. But he's an interesting case study. Definitely the most expensive guy that I'm going to talk about in this video. But let me know down below. Are you guys buying, selling Ricky Pearsall? Keep in mind what his price is. Like I said, Xavier Legette, who I kind of just teased as well, peaked as a top 42 Dynasty wide receiver earlier this offseason, maintaining about the ranking he had as a rookie when he was a surprise first rounder post-NFL draft. The tape was not good in 2024. Jacob Gibbs, shout out to him. He put out a cut-up of like every quarterback's 20-plus yard throws, and Bryce Young put it on the money for Xavier Legette a couple of times, and he wasn't able to come down with it. He dropped the ball. He couldn't fight through contact. Xavier Legette was raw as hell. He only managed 500 yards his rookie season and 4 touchdowns. Somewhat injury-riddled for sure, but a 59.1 PFF receiving grade, 8 drops, 14% drop rate. That's why the Panthers drafted T-Mac in the top 8 of the NFL draft. Jalen Coker is kind of nipping at his heels, who I would argue probably had a better season than Xavier Legette despite being undrafted versus a first-round pick. And then they also have some capable veterans on that team that I think people will forget about. Adam Thielen could take away routes from Xavier Legette. Hunter Renfrow is coming back from, it sounds like he had like some kind of IBD and he like lost a bunch of weight, and that's why he was out of the NFL last year. So those guys are trusty veterans. They could take Xavier Legette off the field if he's not ready. I want to believe in Xavier Legette. I did actually like the tape from him at South Carolina, but historical hit rate wise, when you get a guy who was analytically not a good prospect, who is a reach in the NFL draft, has a rookie season like this where you look at the opportunity that he had in front of him, he was competing for targets with Dontayvion Johnson, who was eventually traded. Jalen Coker was an undrafted free agent. There wasn't a whole lot of established target competition there. So as a first-round pick, you probably should have came out and had a better rookie season. It's not looking good for him. Am I buying? Am I selling? Am I holding? I'd sell for his current price tag. Right now, according to the market, you can get about the 212 in a 2025 rookie draft or a mid to late projected second in 2026 for him. I love Bryce Young, but I fear Xavier Legette may just be like a spike week guy going forward at best because Tetero McMillan, much better prospect, is going to alpha him quickly. All of these other vets and Jalen Coker likely to eat into his playing time. So as much as it hurts me to say, because I did kind of like Xavier Legette, I think I would probably take whatever you can get for him at this point in time, assuming it is second round capital. If all you're getting offered is like the 306 or something like that, I would probably hold him at that point. But any second round capital, he would be off my team. Adonai Mitchell, wide receiver of the Indianapolis Colts, is the next guy that I have here. Peaked as wide receiver 54 earlier on in the offseason. So we're talking about a guy that hasn't really been highly valued on the market, but he is a young player, 22.6 years old, 27.1% target rate as a rookie, which was very, very strong. Countless missed opportunities by Anthony Richardson, especially early in the year. Like I remember that first game, he could have had like 2 long touchdowns in that game and Richardson just missed them. 43rd percentile versus man per reception perception, 82nd percentile at beating press coverage. His ESPN open score had Adonai Mitchell 9th in the NFL as a 21-year-old rookie at separating. So the issue for Mitchell is actually playing time. It is not that when he's on the field, he isn't a good player and he can't command targets. He just commanded 37% of the routes last year. Josh Downs is going to man the slot and is probably the best receiver on that team. Michael Pittman Jr. was banged up last year. It would have been really beneficial to Mitchell had he been shut down, but he played through that injury and it looks like he'll be healthy now. And Alec Pierce actually had a nice season, took a step forward last year. So it's probably unwise to assume that Adonai Mitchell will just start this season. He'll probably be the wide receiver 4 going into the year. However, if Adonai Mitchell can continue the great analytics, which is what he's been doing so far, maybe get an injury to one of the top 3 wide receivers, things could clear up. Alec Pierce is a free agent next year. Michael Pittman has an out in his contract after this year as well. I get that Anthony Richardson and Daniel Jones are bad quarterbacks and don't really inspire much confidence. My take on that situation is that Daniel Jones is going to win the job, because Daniel Jones, at the very least, can throw an accurate football, and Anthony Richardson can't even do that, and he also has been really, really banged up throughout his 2-year career so far. So if I had to say buy, sell, hold on Adonai Mitchell at his current wide receiver 66 price tag, or at about an early third-round pick is what you'd have to give up for him, I'd be actively buying him, honestly. I really do think on a rebuilding team, let's say you have 4 third-round picks in 2025, and you wanted to offload one for Adonai Mitchell, I'd be okay doing it. I know technically he face-planted from wide receiver 40-ish after the NFL draft to about wide receiver 60 like he is right now. I would still say We knew he was raw. We knew he was going to have playing time issues year one. Didn't really sort itself out his rookie season, but the advanced analytics were there. Could be the type of guy that rises post-training camp because he's getting a lot of, hype videos and that kind of thing. And you could even sell him and flip him for a second at that point in time. So I would say Adonai Mitchell for a third-round pick, I would be buying at that point. And Dontayvion Wicks is basically exactly Adonai Mitchell, only 1 year earlier. Wicks, open score darling, 4th in the NFL last year among all wide receivers, but goddamn could he not catch the football. An 18% drop rate, 4 out of 16 contested targets. The Packers add Matthew Golden. They have Jaden Reed, who obviously plays the slot. Romeo Doubs probably starting on the outside over Dontayvion Wicks, and Doubs is a free agent after this season. I don't know, maybe I'm nuts, but I think the dropsies were kind of a fluke for Wicks last year. He did not have a drop problem in college, didn't have a drop problem in his rookie season. The target rate was 29.5%, which is an elite number. That was top 8 in the NFL, and Adonai Mitchell, who I mentioned was a top 10 mark in the NFL. I would say if I had to buy, sell, hold Dontayvion Wicks, I would lean towards buying because he's probably not going for anything more than a late third, early fourth round rookie pick because he's Dynasty wide receiver 79 right now. And I think the dude can play. I don't want to sit here and say he's going to be like a fantasy superstar or something, but if he pops up as an elite waiver ad again next season because Doubs misses time or Golden misses time or Reed misses time, it wouldn't shock me. And at that point, if you got him for a 4th round pick, you might be able to cash out for a 3rd round pick, maybe even a 2nd round pick in more casual leagues. Because like I said, the dude can play. He had a couple really big performances as a rookie, had a couple big performances last year, mainly against Minnesota. So I do think Dontayvion Wicks is worth a stash. If you have him, hold him. If you don't have him, maybe fire out a 4th round pick type of offer for him. See if you can get him for cheap. Troy Franklin and Marvin Mims, both Denver Broncos wide receivers, both have peaked kind of as like top 40 to 45 dynasty wide receivers. I'm grouping these guys together because outside of Cortland Sutton in Denver, somebody will probably emerge. I think Bo Nix is a good quarterback, and I think they're going to call a pretty good offense here. Maybe it'll be Evan Ingram who just soaks up all the targets or whatever. But I do think we're going to get some fantasy relevance out of one of these 3 wide receivers, whether it's Pat Bryant, the rookie, Troy Franklin, who was a 4th round pick last year, or Marvin Mims, who was a 2nd round pick 2 years ago. I would say both of these guys are worth the shot. Troy Franklin worth about a late 3rd, early 4th, according to the market, at barely 22 years old, also a very raw player, so a down rookie season was somewhat expected. Marvin Mims just barely 23 years old, but he is worth a little bit more at about an early 3rd. I think it's pretty significant that A, Pat Bryant is the same age as these guys. He's about halfway in between the 2 guys. And B, he was the only wide receiver added. To me, that instills some confidence in Marvin Mims, in Troy Franklin, because they could have taken Matthew Golden with their 20th pick. They could have taken Luther Burden or whatever in the 2nd round or traded up for him, but they didn't. I suspect they were probably very in on Emeka Egbuka, who went 1 pick before them to my Tampa Bay Buccaneers. But Marvin Mims, Spike Week King. He had 3 games last year of 20-plus PPR points, including Week 17 and Week 18, which is top of mind for a lot of best ball drafters right now, and his ADP is actually pretty high because of it. Mims just needs the routes. He's ranked number 7 among all wide receivers with a 29.5% target rate last year, and 2.86 yards per route run was actually 4th. So I would be willing to buy Marvin Mims for like that early 3rd round price tag if I could. Franklin objectively just looked like a rookie. He did not have a good season, 55.8 PFF receiving grade, an 11.8% drop rate, just 317 yards his rookie year, despite, I would say, having opportunity in front of him. He ran twice as many routes as Marvin Mims did, and you could definitely argue, and I'm sure Broncos fans would agree, that Mims was the better player when he was on the field. So if I had to say kind of buy, sell, hold for both of these guys, Franklin is so cheap that I'm willing to buy him as like a late 3rd round cost, as like a package. Oh, you have a trade that's close and you just want to throw him into the back of the trade to make it a little bit easier as a sweetener. I think Franklin's an okay addition at that point. But Mims, I would actually be targeting of the 2 of those guys with extra thirds if I had extra thirds who need wide receiver help, especially if you are in a dynasty best ball league. So I really like both of those guys as potential really, really cheap sleeper targets to go after. Jalen Polk, wide receiver of the New England Patriots, I am sure the only question the Jalen Polk managers have, and unfortunately I have bags of Jalen Polk, as do you guys probably if you followed our advice last offseason, because I like the college prospect. I thought it was a good landing spot. I thought he fit well with Drake May, and I was drafting him in the mid-2nd round of rookie drafts last year. The one question that everyone has is this guy cooked? Is he completely fried? 45.4 PFF receiving grade last year. That was dead last among wide receivers. 87 receiving yards on a team that was literally begging for somebody to emerge in this wide receiver core. 8th percentile separation according to reception perception against man, 24th versus zone. Cash out for literally anything. Anybody offers you anything, a 4th round pick, a 3rd round pick, a different young receiver, if you can flip him into Franklin or something, just his career would be such a shock if he became a fantasy relevant wide receiver after the rookie season he posted, despite being kind of a so-so prospect. His career is like 28-3 at halftime in Super Bowl 51. He would need like a Tom Brady level comeback for him to ever become a fantasy relevant wide receiver. So Jalen Polk, pour one out. He's probably cooked. If you have him, he might be a dead roster clogger at this point. I wouldn't even say he's not droppable at this point in Dynasty. I probably wouldn't drop him. Give him, throw him back on your taxi squad. Give him half the season to see what he can do. But he's probably cooked. Running back position we can pivot into. I got Trey Benson as the first guy listed here. Peaked right around like a back-end RB2 last season, post-rookie year, January, February or so. What we know about Benson is this. He's an elite running relative athletic score athlete, was a little bit raw coming out of school. I did have him ranked RB1 in the 2024 class because I thought after a year of some kind of development, he could be one of the best running backs in the league. He's still just 22 years old. Had some time to sit and learn from a veteran like James Conner. I loved the Cardinals landing spot for that reason, and I still do because they have an improving offensive line, a young offense. Conner is there for probably another year of guaranteed money, but by 2026, they can cut him for just $2 million in dead cap, and James Conner is 30 years old, has played 16-plus games only once in his entire career, and it happened to be last season. He averaged 4.6 yards per carry, was a top 15 running back in fantasy points per game. So James Conner definitely still playing at a high level. The question is, do they view Trey Benson as a succession plan? I think the fact that they did not add any running backs in this year's class shows me that they do. And Benson showed some flashes, 4.6 yards per carry himself. He had 50, 55, and 87 total yards in his 3 games post like week 5 or so down the stretch where he saw more than 8 opportunities. So he was getting yards, getting targets, only had 6 targets on the year, but he was really efficient, averaging like 10 yards per reception. Again, there's not much I can point to other than the fact that I thought he was a good prospect. He's a good athlete, and he showed some flashes. At the very least, Trey Benson, to me, is a very good handcuff, if not one of the best handcuffs in all of fantasy, because he has the talent that if James Conner were to go down, and given that he's 30 years old and has suffered injuries in the past, it's very possible we do see Trey Benson take over this backfield. I believed in the prospect. I believed in the player. I still think he can play. There's not much to go off of. It's a lot of projection, but I think he's a good receiver. I think he's a great athlete. I think he can run between the tackles, especially after a year of learning behind a veteran like James Conner. So buying, selling, holding for the price tag of RB29, which is where he's going right now, and a mid to late second, give or take, in 2026, 209 in 2025 is where he's valued. I'm buying at that price tag. I think if you were on the board at 209 and Cam Scadaboo and Byshell Tootin were gone and you didn't want to take, let's say, Dylan Sampson as the next running back off of the board and you could use a running back for your team, I would be comfortable trading that pick and getting Trey Benson in return. So moving into the next running back, a little bit older than Trey Benson and Tyjae Spears, but still under 24 years old as of now. Peaked as a top 24 Dynasty running back post-rookie season. He is now at RB 38 on the market. So definitely had a little bit of a fall from grace because he only had 3.7 yards per carry last year. He regressed from 4.5 as a rookie, and he also had 67 targets his rookie season, which went down to 33 last year. Tony Pollard came in and kind of nuked Tyjae Spears because if you guys remember, in February, March last year when Derrick Henry was going to leave, Tyjae Spears was expected to be the lead back, and then they brought in Tony Pollard to big money. Major injury bug last year for Tyjae Spears, 2 concussions, a hamstring injury, an ankle sprain, a lot of that stuff happening early on in the year, but a top 6 running back in yards per touch, juke rate his rookie season. I think he was pretty banged up last year. Tony Pollard is there. Tony Pollard will be the favorite to start, but he is 28 years old. It is the last year of his contract in terms of dead money, and he was surprisingly like a top 7 running back in opportunity share last year. He was expected to finish as a top 15 guy based on his usage, and he finished just RB 22 in points per game. Now, part of that is that the Titans literally had the number 1 pick, and it wasn't a very good offense, but you got a quarterback upgrade with Cam Ward coming in. If I'm buying, selling, or holding Tyjae Spears, knowing that Pollard is probably only going to be there for 1 more year, I like the price tag of Tyjae Spears. I would be comfortable giving up a mid to late second round pick, again, similar to that Trey Benson range. If you had to give up a mid to late second for Tyjae Spears, he is valued right now as a late second or the 212 in rookie drafts this year. I'd be comfortable doing it. Again, if I'm deciding between Dylan Sampson and Tyjae Spears, I would rather have Tyjae Spears myself, but I get if some people want to re-roll him into somebody different. Tank Bigsby, the next player at running back that I'm going to talk about here, Jacksonville Jaguars running back, peaked as a top 26 dynasty running back earlier this offseason. And Tank Bigsby, also a very good example of what it looks like when you are a raw running back prospect who had to marinate for about a year before they start to look like they're putting things together, similar to what I said with Trey Benson. After a really bad rookie year, like objectively one of the worst running backs in the NFL, Tank Bigsby turned things around, thoroughly outperformed Travis Etienne, was a Pro Bowler the year before, Travis Etienne, and a top-tier fantasy pick. And Tank Bigsby was objectively across the board better. EPA per rush, total EPA, rushing yards, rushing touchdowns, yards per carry, yards after contact. He was better than Travis Etienne in everything. To be honest, I think that with Liam Cohen coming in, who I saw him elevate the play of Rachaad White, turn a fourth-round running back like Bucky Irving into an absolute star, I think Liam Cohen's rushing scheme is magical. Travis Hunter comes in, Brian Thomas Jr. and Lawrence back in the fold healthy. You could argue that this backfield could be one of the most valuable in fantasy if one of them emerges as a starter. We don't know who it's going to be. Is ETN going to be there? Is it going to be Byshell Tootin, who is, of course, one of my draft darlings, and I absolutely love Tootin. Borderline third-round draft capital. He was taking the second pick of round 4. Are we buying, are we selling, or are we holding Tank Bigsby right now? My gut tells me ETN is not long for that situation. Either gets dealt or whatever, and it is a Tootin and Tank Bigsby backfield. Tank Bigsby the hammer, Tootin more of the in-space type of touches. I am buying Tank Bigsby right now because ETN is still there, and it's muddying up the situation. My bet would go to probably Tootin long-term as the guy that wins this job, but Tank is a good back, was a good prospect. He was my RB4 in that 2023 draft class behind Charbonnet, Gibbs, and Bijan. He played like a legit dude when he got a workload last year. He had 2 finishes of top 3 fantasy production. The price at an early third or even a late second is probably worth the swing. So if you are looking for some running back depth, I think Tank Bigsby definitely a guy that could really skyrocket his way up the running back depth chart. Because as much as I say Tootin is probably going to win the job, it wouldn't shock me if Tootin, who is also a raw rookie coming out, isn't the lead back in year 1. They trade ETN. It is Tank Bigsby's backfield. He's a top 20 guy this coming year, and he really rises in terms of his value. That would not shock me either. So Jaylen Wright peaked as a top 30 running back earlier in the offseason. A lot of good quotes coming out from the Miami Dolphins about Jaylen Wright, and is a very similar case to Trey Benson. Short-term, long-term outcomes a little bit worse than Trey Benson because James Conner is ahead of him versus Devon Achane, who's obviously a young running back in his prime. But you can talk yourself into Jaylen Wright having a nice role. He was my RB3 behind Benson and Brooks in the 2024 NFL Draft. He appears to be poised for a role uptick. When Mike McDaniel was asked about the run game, Dynasty rankings would assume that he would gush about Devon Achane because Achane's a top 5 Dynasty running back. But what he actually said was, we have high expectations for the tandem of Devon Achane and Jaylen Wright. Now, you might be thinking this is just a 4th-round running back, not super interesting. But remember, in the 2024 NFL Draft, the Dolphins traded up using their 3rd-round pick in 2025 and spending a high 4th-round pick on Jaylen Wright. So he actually kind of almost has day 2 draft capital because they traded away a future 3rd to trade up for him. They have high hopes. They have big plans. And he just turned 22 a few weeks ago. Despite not doing the whole, he was great his rookie season, because he definitely was not. He looked like a rookie. He was a raw prospect. It's understandable. He had a 9.8 RAS score coming out of college, 4.38 speed, 210-pound size. He can play the early down Raheem Mostert role from 2 years ago. I still expect excellent usage from Achane. I actually have him as a top 5 redraft running back. Definitely a potential league winner, in my opinion. But Jaylen Wright could have a standalone role. It's one of the more efficient running offenses in the NFL when they're playing right and Tua is healthy and McDaniel's calling it up nice. Plus, Achane's a free agent in 2 years. We'll have to wait and see what happened. I would say that Jaylen Wright is going to be one of the better handcuffs with a good standalone role type of players. I am not scared of Ollie Gordon. I think he fell in the draft clearly because he is a knucklehead, and knuckleheads don't usually carve out great roles as rookies. If I'm buying, selling, or holding Jaylen Wright at about the pick 302 or early 3rd-rounder price tag that he's going for right now, I would say I'd be okay buying at that price. I'm not going to say that he's an absolute stud and I would I would trade for him in every single league format, but I do think he's a half-decent option to go after. Blake Corum, one of the last couple running backs that I'm going to talk about here, post-NFL season, he peaked around RB34. Corum was a solid prospect coming out of Michigan. I believe he was my RB5 in last year's class, but in hindsight, he had average tools, average size. He was probably not going to be a huge asset in the NFL, but the reason we kind of liked him is because he was exactly like Kyron Williams. His rookie season was not great. 2024 drafted running backs didn't really have great rookie seasons unless your name was like Bucky Irving or Tyrone Tracy, but 70.0 PFF rushing grade, 3.6 yards per carry. He was brought in to spell Kyren Williams. Unlike Benson and Wright, who were considered more long-term plays when they were drafted, McVay, when he drafted Corum, said, we want to take away work from Kyren. We want to take stuff off of his plate. And then he proceeded to have an even bigger opportunity share than he did the year before. So for me, I think that speaks pretty bearish against Blake Corum. The team then spends an early fourth rounder on Jarquez Hunter, who's a back with more speed than Kyren Williams and Blake Corum. And if Kyren is the bell cow yet again, I think he probably will be, Hunter eating to the handcuff appeal of Blake Corum and the long-term viability of Blake Corum because Kyren is a free agent after this year, to me, it's just not a great situation. Plus, Kyren Williams signs an extension and Blake Corum's cooked. Like he's not going to be worth very much at all. And I think he'll probably take a back seat even potentially to Jarquez Hunter this year. If we're buying, selling, and holding here, to me, this is a sell. I mean, he is not expensive. Like you get an early third round pick for him. That's probably all you're going to get at most. But if you can find a buyer in that range, I would rather re-roll Kyren into some of the players I have ranked in the early third round this year. DJ Giddens, Harold Fannin, Dylan Sampson, some of those guys. If they're available on the board and you can flip Corum straight up into those guys, I would absolutely do it. And if you could just punt him into an early projected 2026 third, I would do that as well. So Blake Corum, not necessarily a big winner of the NFL draft. Marshawn Lloyd also peaked near RB 45 to 50 in Dynasty. There's absolutely nothing to go off with Lloyd because he suffered injury after injury after injury last year. Hamstring injury preseason, ankle sprain in week 2, which caused him to miss like 8 games, and then he has appendicitis in week 11 that eventually ended his season. Now, nothing you can possibly point to on Marshawn Lloyd. The only things he has going for him are this. Number one, nobody else got added. It is Josh Jacobs, it is Marshawn Lloyd, and I guess Emmanuel Wilson and some other guys. That is the backfield, and Josh Jacobs is, of course, a workhorse, is a bell cow, but at the very least, I think that Lloyd is the new A.J. Dillon, where he can be a handcuff who learns from the veteran. He was also kind of raw coming out of school, and maybe, in 2 years, if Josh Jacobs is not playing like the same player, when his contract has no dead money, Marshawn Lloyd could take over at that point in time. But injuries were a problem for him in college. You got to stay on the field, and that's a big-time problem. If I'm buying, selling, holding, early projected third, I mean, I think I would sell him for that. I would definitely cash that out because I don't think he's really going to have an opportunity to get the starting job. I think it's probably that if Jacobs goes down and Marshawn Lloyd starts for a couple of games, I'd be looking to cash out right then and there. That's when I'd be looking to cash out, and you could probably get something decent for him. There's also nothing saying that, Emmanuel Wilson wouldn't get those touches. Like Marshawn Lloyd hasn't done anything yet. So if somebody's willing to give you an early projected third next year, I would probably be willing to take that for Marshawn Lloyd at this point in time. Now, one guy that I am kind of interested in is Roschon Johnson, who peaked as about the same as Marshawn Lloyd. Why would I care about 2.7 yards per carry Roschon Johnson? Well, the reason is because he was a top 13 running back in EPA. He was the 29th highest graded running back on PFF with a 76.1 grade. And most importantly, he is the only running back on the roster outside of DeAndre Swift. That is, and Swift is not reliable, but he is the only running back on the roster outside of Swift, really, that can do anything. Kyle Menengi, not a good prospect. 7th round, mid running back. Could they add Travis Etienne, J.K. Dobbins, somebody else via trade or free agency? For sure. But Roschon Johnson might serve the David Montgomery to DeAndre Swift. Ben Johnson's worked with him before. And of course, he used Jamal Williams in tandem with DeAndre Swift that year in 2022, where Jamal Williams had a bunch of touchdowns. I could see Roschon Johnson legitimately having a role in this backfield. And given all the weapons on the outside, I think whoever plays running back for this team is going to probably have their efficiency boosted with the offensive line additions. You have Odunze, DJ Moore, Luther Burden, and Colston Loveland, and Cole Kmet on the outside with Caleb Williams maybe taking a step forward. I don't know, man. I feel like you could do worse with a 4th round rookie pick than trading for Roschon Johnson because he ain't costing you very much. If he costs you more than a 4th or even a late 3rd, I probably wouldn't buy him. But given that he's going, really, really low in dynasty running back rankings, I'd be okay going after him. He had 6 rushing touchdowns last year. More touches could equal a functional like Jamal Williams 2022 type of role. And he's still just 24 years old, had a pretty decent prospect profile. I liked him as a prospect. So we'll have to wait and see what happens there. But I do think Roschon's kind of interesting. Moving into some quarterbacks and tight ends, I just have one of each, and both of them are hyper frustrating assets. Anthony Richardson, I don't know what to do with this dude, but he peaked as a 1st round starter pick last offseason. Now, Getting hurt after 3 games of his rookie year was the best thing that could have ever happened to dynasty managers of Anthony Richardson who didn't believe in him, because you could have taken your elite selling window, because he, I think, is on a fast track to Trey Lance 2.0. Quarterback 41 in EPA last year, 38% completion percentage under pressure, which is awful, 21% completion percentage on deep balls, which is putrid, true completion percentage of 53%, which is terrible. Like, the guy can't throw, man. The guy cannot throw the football. And at least as of now, say what you want about Daniel Jones. Not a good quarterback, not a franchise quarterback, overpaid, whatever. He throws an accurate football. Number 16 last year in accuracy or true completion percentage. Number 6 the year before that. And number 1 in 2022 before he got that big contract. He was number 1 in completion percentage, true completion percentage that season. So Daniel Jones has never had weapons like this. He's never had a run game. I mean, he has had a run game in Saquon like this, but in totality, weapons, run game, coaching, and protection, we haven't seen Daniel Jones in a situation like this. So I think it's very clear, buy, sell, hold Anthony Richardson. I think he stinks. I think he will not be a starting quarterback in the NFL. 2025, 205 is what he's still going for, given the upside of what he can represent, and an early second rounder in 2026 or 2027. I know he's hard to sell because I have tons of you guys comment, I would love to sell Anthony Richardson. I cannot because nobody in my league wants him. If all you're getting offered is third round rookie picks, probably don't sell him at that point, because on the 5% chance that he hits his upside, you'll probably kick yourself for selling a third round pick. But if you could sell him in a package deal, which is what I did to sell him, I sold him plus the 208 and 311 to get Dak Prescott from a full-fledged tear-down team. I would argue that that guy sold really low on him. You probably will have to pay like Richardson plus a first to get Dak Prescott type. But sometimes people buy into the tantalizing upside with Anthony Richardson. If you have a Rich Truther in your league, find the Colts fan, find the A-Rich Truther. If you can find one and cash out for an early 2, get him off your roster, because I really, really do not think he's going to make it past Halloween as a starting quarterback, if that. I wouldn't be shocked if in training camp Daniel Jones takes the job from him and never gets it back, because say what you want about Daniel Jones, he's a better quarterback than Anthony Richardson by a country mile, in my opinion, at least as a passer. And Daniel Jones, it's not like he gives you nothing as a runner, too. He can run the football a little bit as well. Kyle Pitts, of course, pour one out. I mean, he once peaked as the gold standard in tight ends, is what we called him at one point in time. Since then, we got 356 yards in 10 games in 2022, 667 in 2023 in 17 games, and then 602 in 17 games, just 9 total touchdowns the last 3 years. Is Kyle Pitts cooked? That would be the question. If you guys have Kyle Pitts on your roster, the answer to me is probably. He probably is cooked. However, I'm going to copy him a little bit here. Pitts is just 24 years old still. He is 1.5 years older than Tyler Warren, Colts rookie tight end. Receiving grade, yards per route run, declined every year. So that's not looking great. That 1,000-yard rookie season that we've all kind of clung to is looking like a distant memory. But in the projection world, Penix expects to throw the ball quite a bit. London, Mooney, Bijan and company expects to be a pretty good offense. And I think they're going to throw the ball like a lot, like I said. And Pitts was a tight end 1 on the week in 6 of the 8 games last year that he saw over a 65% route participation. So when he is on the field, which we've seen year 1, year 2 of his career, he was running a lot of routes. Last year, didn't really see that. The price is why I'm still intrigued. It depends. This is the one asset in this entire video from league to league who's going to have a completely different price. If you can get Kyle Pitts off your team for a mid-second round pick, you got to do it. You got to do it. You should sell him at a mid-second round price tag. Somebody offers you the 207 this year, off my team. I would be inclined to cash out at that point in time, even in half tight end premium type of formats. But in some leagues, you will be able to trade for him for a mid to late second round pick, or even a late second round pick, or maybe even 2/3 or something like that. So I can't shake this feeling that Kyle Pitts might actually finally put it all together mentally, because that's the problem for him right now. And he's not even 25 years old yet. And the tight end prime usually is about 25 to 29. And he's had a number of years to kind of marinate, learn the offense, second year in the system. They're already hyping him up. Again, am I copium? Yes. Would I hold him if somebody was giving me a mid-second? No. But would I trade for him or hold him if all I'm getting offered is late seconds and early thirds? Yeah, I would, because I do think the risk is worth the reward at that point. He is tight end 8 on the market right now. I'm not there with him, but I do understand why people are still in on Kyle Pitts, because he's intriguing enough to still hold out hope, still keep the lights on just a little bit. But this was a bit of a longer video. I went through 15 players. None of them were first-round rookie picks who are at really crucial times in their careers. Contentious players in Dynasty. Are they going to go up? Are they going to go down? I would imagine half the players in this video hold or lose value, and then a handful of players in this video probably gain quite a bit of value. The key is determining which guys are which. And like I said, the guys that I think could gain quite a bit of value in this video, I really do like the idea of Trey Benson gaining a lot of value, of Tank Bigsby and Tyjae Spears potentially gaining some value, Adonai Mitchell potentially gaining some value, one of those Broncos receivers maybe gaining some value. And again, I think Ricky Pearsall can gain some value, but he's already really, really kind of baked in that he's going to. So he's the one really kind of odd projection in that area, because I don't really view him much differently than the rest of the guys in that video, but he is worth much more than those guys. So going to be really interesting. Let me know what you guys think of these players. If you have a player that's young, under the age of 25, who you think is kind of at a sink or swim point of their careers, let me know down below, and I'll give you my thoughts if I forgot that player. And let me know any of these players that you want further clarification on. Do you have bags of these players, that kind of thing. So if you enjoyed this video, like, subscribe if you're new around here, comment down below any of your thoughts. If you want all of my Dynasty rankings, all of our startup stuff, all of our rookie draft strategy, all of our rookie draft guide, everything in between, get your team reviewed, broken down before your rookie draft or after your rookie draft, head on over to flockfantasy.com. Use the promo code FSE when you sign up or make any purchases to make sure that you are supporting us directly. And you will also get 30% off, a 7-day free trial for subscriptions, and a free team review that we can break down on a Dynasty Decisions episode for you live on the channel, breaking down your Dynasty roster. When you sign up for an annual Mother Flocker, you will get a free team review voucher. So if that interests you, definitely check all that stuff out down below in the pinned comment. But with that being said, peace out, and I'll talk to you soon.